Right. Welcome back, students. So after Simone de Beauvoir, there is another stalwart in feminist theory, and she's one of the major proponents of feminist theory, Elaine Schalter. And her work toward a feminist poetics in 1979 is considered to be a groundbreaking work, which has a deep impact upon general feminist theory. Uh, There are three phases of female literary history. Feminism, feminine, there are three phases of female literary history. Feminists in 1840 to 1880 imitate male tradition during this era. Sorry, it's not feminine, it's feminist. In this era, for her, there are three phases. The first phase is imitating male tradition, and second, from 1880s to 1920, to protest against male norms, and the third is after 1920 till present, self-discovery, separate literary identity. So she coined the term gynocriticism, study of women as writers, not just victims of patriarchy. Schalter is a major figure in Anglo-American feminism. Her three phases are incredibly useful for literary history. The feminine phase, women writers like Brontes who used male pseudonyms. Like there is a woman writer whose name was Brontes. She used male pseudonym because this was the phase when women were trying to imitate men. The first phase was she called it a feminine phase. Uh, the second phase she calls is feminist phase, where women protest novels like The Awakening by Kate Chopin or The Yellow Wallpaper. And the third phase is the female phase, the actual female phase, where writers like Toni Morrison or Margaret Atwood, who don't just protest patriarchy, but imagine a full realized female literary tradition. Gynocriticism is her term for studying women's writings on its own terms, not just as a response to men. So she thinks that even like treating feminism as just a response to men is basically diminishing, degrading it. She says that women's writing should be treated on their own terms, not just as a response to men. This is the current or contemporary phase which we are going through in feminism, according to Walter. And the fourth one is, again, a very important one. Uh, Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks, basically, her work which name is Ain't a Woman, Black Woman and Feminism in 1981. She criticizes white middle class feminism as exclusionary. See, I mean, after this three phases of Sholtrin, Bell Hooks moves on and she criticizes even those feminists which are white middle class feminism as exclusionary. They think she thinks that some people have been excluded from feminism. She introduces intersectionality term from Crenshaw into literary critique. She argues black women's experience is not simply double oppression, race and gender, but a unique condition. And her legacy is we must ask which woman, when analyzing any text. Basically, bell hooks deliberately writes her name in lowercase. If you look, her name is in lowercase, and it's not a mistake. This is deliberate. She has done it herself. She writes her name in lowercase to focus attention on her ideas rather than her name, not her persona, not her name. Look, this is where the feminism is going on. This is what is called intellectual development. I mean, you can see where feminism started, and now uh, Bell Hooks, she even doesn't write her name in capital letters because she thinks that uh, the focus or attention should be her ideas and not her persona. Her critique of earlier feminism is devastating but very essential or necessary. When second wave feminists talked about women, they usually meant white, middle class, heterosexual Western women. Hooks asked, what about black maid in the novel, the immigrant factory worker, or the lesbian? Intersectionality, the term which was coined by her, a term coined by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, she adopted, means you cannot separate gender from race, class, and sexuality. A black woman in literature is not female plus back. She experiences a specific condition, irreducible to either category. I mean, we cannot reduce that experience to just being a female or just being a black. It's a kind of unique experience. Being a black woman, she says, it's a unique experience, which is, I mean, normally what the feminism has been doing before her. She thinks that while talking about feminism, we always talk about white, middle class, normal uh, women, you know. Uh, but she thinks that this female black experience is something very unique. So we can, I mean, imagine that how different scholars and different theorists in feminism have moved from right from the first phase, which were discovered three phases by Scholter, right from the first phase to they basically came up to this exclusionist philosophy or theory of feminism. Now, if we apply this feminist theory um, onto literature, applying it, the first example is that of the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins in 1892, feminist readings. This is the most taught feminist short story for good reason. Why? Because this story of the yellow wallpaper has been used by feminists throughout, and it's very interesting. This is the most taught feminist short theory. So read it as a doctor-patient drama, and it's disturbing. Read it as a feminist allegory, and it's revolutionary. The narrator's husband, John, is a physician, so his power over her is both marital and institutional. She wants to write, he forbids. So the narrator, woman diagnosed with hysteria, confined to a room. Husband is a doctor. Husband who is a doctor. Patriarchal authority dismisses her creative urges. The wallpaper, the text of female oppression, tearing it down, that's the rebellion. The key insight, the rest cure is a metaphor for how patriarchy tries to silence female imagination. So this short story, like applying feminism on this story, which has been done by so many feminists, is that a husband who is a doctor, and he's got a wife who wants to basically uh, write, express herself, but he denies her with this right, and she was diagnosed with hysteria, kind of psychological, disease, and she's confined to a room. Why? Because the narrator, her husband, is a physician who has got power over her, both marital and institutional, being a husband and being a doctor. She wants to write, he forbids it. She sees a woman trapped behind wallpaper's pattern. He calls it a nervous fantasy. At the end, she tears down the paper and creeps over his unconscious body. Gilman wrote this as a critique of Doctor S. Mitchell's rest cure and sent him a copy. He later modified his treatment. So, in this instance, we can see, is the narrator insane at the end or free? This generates a debate. So, this is how you apply feminist theory. Just a point I would like to make here is about teaching something. Generally speaking, a teacher is considered, in our society, is that teacher is someone who has got the answers for everything or every question. This is not the job of a teacher. The teacher job is to create some kind of curiosity or give some sorts of hints or guide the students toward, pinpoint something towards them, and then let them critically evaluate it, let them think about it. So this is the example, and it's you guys who need to think about it, that whether the narrator is insane at the end or free. I would strongly recommend you to read this story of the yellow paper, and it will give you insight to how the feminism has been applied. The second example of feminist theory, applying of feminist theory, is A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. The feminist reading of this story would be: Emily, constructed by male narrators, gaze townspeople. Her body, house, relationship are surveilled and judged. Refusal to pay taxes, marry, adopt is equal to acts of quiet rebellion. And the dead lover, Homer Baron, is equal to fear of female sexual independence. So the key insight into this whole scenario is even texts by men can be read against the grain to expose patriarchal anxiety. So this kind of literature, which was written by, obviously, by a male, William Faulkner. William Faulkner is a feminist author, and that's precisely why reading him through a feminist lens is illuminating. So his work, which is called A Rose for Emily, should be read through feminist lens in order to get some kind of illumination. This story is narrated by we, the collective male voice of the town. They spy on Emily, a female character in the work, speculate about her sex life, and eventually discover she killed her lover and slept beside her corpse. A non-feminist reading would be she is a grotesque mad woman, while the feminist reading would be she is a woman so surveilled, so denied agency that the only space she controls is death. She was forced to do that. That's the only control she has got. The title, A Rose for Emily, who gives the rose? Men do. She receives, she doesn't act. So the key insight is even text by men can be read against the grain to expose patriarchal anxieties. Contrast with a female authored Southern Gothic story, Flannery O'Connor, a good man is a hard to find. So eventually, we, the feminists come to the conclusion that it's very hard to find a good man. Now, obviously, if we keep talking about feminism, it goes on and on and on, and we are experiencing different kind of feminism in our society as well. There are some traces in here, but there are some common criticisms on feminist literary theory. The first one is that essentialism, assuming all women share the same experience. Generally, feminists consider that all women have been suffering and all women have the same experiences. I want you to be critical of feminism, but not dismissive. These criticisms are real. Essentialism, early feminists sometimes claimed all women have feminine way of writing. The shorter what she describes as the first phase, which is feminine way of writing. But what about aggressive female writers or gentle male writers? It's not like you cannot brush all the women with the same I mean, you cannot brush them away with the same brush, because there are differences, and man or human being generally is a striving, real, existing being. We cannot generalize them that having the same experience. That's the essentialism criticism. Uh, the second criticism is heteronormativity. What does it mean? Feminism focused on male female relations and ignored lesbian literature until queer theory pushed back. Early feminists ignore the lesbian queer identities. It's always male and female. What about feminists? What about the relation of women with other women? How do feminism would see that? They have just ignored it. So heteronormativity is another criticism. The third criticism is Western focus. Assumes Western patriarchy is universal model. Uh, well, patriarchy is almost everywhere in the world. We can assume that, but the kind, it's not always Western. So the it's a natural thing, to be honest, when these all these feminists who come from the majority of them come from the Western background. So obviously, it's an obvious reason that their focus would be Western. But that's a kind of criticism on them as well. Feminism assumed patriarchy works the same way in the West, in Asia, in Japan, in Nigeria, in everywhere. But that's not true. Today's feminist critics accept these critiques and adapt. The best feminist theory is self-critical. So every single theory, not only it's not limited to the uh, feminism only. Every best theory has to be self-critical. So that's how we progress. That's how the ideology moves on. When you analyze the weaknesses of your theory, you just improve it, and that's how the progress. Some people think that the feminism theory or feminist theory has been, it's outdated. Some argue post-feminism makes gender critique less urgent. So, but somehow this criticism is not as strong as the others are. So, feminist critics respond that these are weaknesses within feminism, not reasons to abandon it. Because of these criticism, we cannot abandon, obviously, we cannot abandon feminism, although these are the weaknesses and these need to be improved. The Most contemporary feminist criticism is reading TikTok literature. For example, Pauline Hoover for gender dynamics. What does it mean basically? Feminist literary theory is not stuck in 1970s. Today you'll see people analyzing fan fiction on archive of our own form of from a feminist perspective. You'll see AI generated stories tested for gender bias. You'll see trans inclusive readings of Virginia Woolf's Orlando, a novel about protagonists who changes sex overnight. Ecofeminism looks at how nature is feminized and how that justifies exploitation. Global feminist critique, global feminist criticism reads authors like Adichie and Alif Shafak without imposing Western assumptions. I hope that you might have heard the name of Alif Shafak, who uh, wrote a very famous novel, which is 40 Rules of Love, about Maulana Room. If you have not read that, I would strongly recommend. It's a beautiful novel. So these are the contemporary. I mean, it's not about. It's again. It's not limited about feminist or feminism or feminist theory. The contemporary thing of the social media, the AI has drastically changed everything. So every theory, when you bring it down to our contemporary times, it's entirely changes. So like TikTok, I mean, it's so influential now that even people use this marketing of channel TikTok as a marketing channel. They are more popular. Those who are on the TikTok or any other social media, you can see that these TikTokers are they are kind of celebrities, and they are invited in inauguration in different places. So they are so influential, and it's not limited to only male or female. I mean, it has changed entirely. It has changed the mindset of people. AI generated narratives, do they replicate stereotypes? You know, when we generate things with AI, they are not, they basically, they do not replicate stereotypes, to be honest. The trans inclusive feminism, rethinking women as a category. Ecofeminism links oppression of women and nature in literature, and global feminist critique, reading Chimamanda Ngozi Achebe and works for post-colonial gender struggles and Elf Shafak, etc. So obviously, in literary criticism, feminist literary theory is quite oh, essential. It's very influential, and it's one of the most important contemporary theories in literary criticism. So the summary of today's lecture is like or key takeaways. Feminist literary theory exposes patriarchal structures in the text. It moves. It's not about hating men or something like that. It is out there to expose patriarchal structures in the text. Moves from recovery, first wave, to intersectionality, third to fourth wave. The key terms: patriarchy, gender versus sex, uh, gynocriticism, othering. Uh, it's not just about woman characters, it's about who writes, who reads, and who is erased. And still evolving. It's not static. You can see right from the beginning, from Virginia Woolf till today's feminism, there's a drastic change. So it's still evolving. Digital trans and global feminism. And these are the suggested readings. If you have time, you can go through this literature, and it will give you a fair view about feminism and literary criticism with the lens of feminism. So I hope you might have understood what we tried to discuss today. And if you have got any questions, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group or even in the next lecture. I will try, I've recorded these videos and I will try to share once it's finished. Uh, I will try to share in the group. Thank you very much and have a lovely weekend.